Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. This is part 2 of What If Deku Date Momo Yaoyorozu. If you notice some errors or missing parts in the video, please tell me in the comment down below. Hope you'll enjoy the video. As Midoriya was being carried off of what remained of the ring on a stretcher, Yaoyorozu, Uraraka, Iida, and Asui all stood, about to rush down to check on the quirk inheritor's status. As Momo began running out the door, she was stopped by Jiru. "Hey. Where are you going, Yao Momo?" Yaoyorozu stopped and looked to Jiru. In all of the events that had transpired that day, she had almost forgotten about her purple-haired rocker best friend, Kyoka. "Sorry Kyoka, but I really need to go check on Midoriya." "Wait, Midoriya? Not that I'm not concerned for his health, but I just didn't know you guys were close." Yaoyorozu looked back, twiddling her thumbs. "It's a fairly recent connection. You can come if you want, but if not I really need to get down there." Yeah. Sure." Jiru was still a little confused. It really wasn't that she didn't care about Midoriya's health. They haven't spoken too much, but when they did he had always seemed like a really nice guy. She once caught him listening to a band she liked when his headphone cord unplugged when it caught onto a door handle. She also saw him laugh at quite a few of her jabs at Kaminari. She could easily see being friends with him someday. But right now the only real male friend she had in class was Kaminari, and he was an idiot. The girls were kind of a tight-knit group in class as of yet with the exception of Uraraka. So now all of a sudden in the past hour her best friend had magically grown fond of the green-headed bone buster. Yao Momo was looking nearly panicked for Midoriya right then. Her focus only on getting to him. Kyoka had more than a few questions. Her first one being, why the hell does it bother me so much? She would have to save the questions for later, for they had arrived at Recovery Girl's stadium office. Before they could open the door, Recovery Girl popped her head out of the door. "I'm sorry. I know you're worried, but you can't come in. I have to put this numbskull through surgery." "Surgery?" they all said in shock. Recovery Girl flinched at the sudden noise. She checked her ears and continued. "Yes, surgery. It's nothing too bad, it's just on his hand. 3 of his fingers were broken twice. I need to remove the bone shards that have fallen out of place and put back together what I can. My quirk will be able to heal the rest when he wakes up and recuperates." That still sounds kinda bad, the UA students thought in unison. But they still couldn't help but sigh in relief that their friend wasn't too hurt. Momo put a hand over her heart and sighed happily, "Oh thank goodness." She missed the raised eyebrows she was getting from Uraraka and Jiru. However, all eyes snapped back to Recovery Girl, who had an almost guilty look on her face. With how long the surgery will take, how long it will take for him to wake up, gain his stamina back, and then lose it due to my quirk, and finally I'll have to test him for post-concussion syndrome, that could take 1.5 to possibly 3 hours. I'm sorry, but I've called up to Eraser and told him to withdraw Midoriya from the tournament." "What?" they all yelled in unison. Momo tried to speak up, but Midoriya earned this. It's important to him. That's not fair. You can't just stop yelling. "Ugh, but yes I know it's not fair. I'm sorry but he needs time to heal. Time I doubt will be given. I've already healed young Todoroki, he's going to continue on by default." But before Yaoyorozu could continue, Iida put a hand on her shoulder, signaling her to stop. "I'm not happy either Yaoyorozu, none of us are. But she's right. We can't have Midoriya going out there to fight in bad condition." Momo looked down in dejection, knowing they were right. Recovery Girl took this as acceptance. "Now, I have to start the surgery. You can wait out here if you want." With that the youthful hero took her leave to start the surgery, leaving the rest of the students to their somber moods. Iida looked up to the rest of his friends. "I'm up next in the tournament, and as class president I should be there to support the rest of our class. Please keep me informed on Midoriya's status. I promise, I'll do my best to fight on and win for Midoriya." Iida exclaimed with his movements stiff and exaggerated as ever. With that he sped off towards the waiting area to prepare for his next fight. As they looked on at the trail Iida left behind him, Uraraka turned to the other girls. "There's a mounted TV over there in front of those chairs. I'm gonna to just watch Iida's fight here and wait for Deku. Are you guys going back?" Jiru looked to Uraraka. "Nah, I'll stay. Might as well see how Greenie holds up." "Hey Yao Momo, Yao Momo?" Jiru and Uraraka looked at Yaoyorozu, who was staring down the hallway that Iida had left. Frustration etched into her usually smooth and porcelain face. What Iida said, how he promised to fight and win for Midoriya's sake. It was just like what Midoriya had promised me, but it felt wrong. He shouldn't have to make that promise for Midoriya. Midoriya should be able to fulfill his own promise and goals. He won. He evolved himself so much in one fight, he won, he earned the right to be able to fight on. He definitely earned the right to have time to rest before his fight. He's done so much for me in just one day. I have to do everything I can to pay him back. Momo whipped around to the other girls. I'll be right back. Please call me if anything bad happens to Midoriya. Wait. Where are you going? But it was too late. Jiru's words fell on deaf ears, for Momo had already turned the corner down the hall. Momo ran up flights of stairs, heading towards the announcer's booth. When she made it to the top floor entrance, she reached for the door handle, only for it to open up and knock her down. She tumbled backwards about to fall back down the stairs, but was caught by rapping. She looked back to see holding his capture tape between the two nubs of his cast hands. He lifted her back to her feet. Yaoyorozu, are you alright? The still monotone as ever voice of Izawa spoke. Yes sir, I'm fine, Momo said, patting her clothes down. Good. Now if you'll excuse me, I have something important to attend to. Wait. Mr. Izawa please, I have something to tell you. He looked back to her. His silence signaling her to continue. Please, find a way to keep Midoriya in the tournament. He deserves to have his chance to win. You saw him out there. He stopped breaking his bones in the fight until the very end. He's earned the right to have time to rest before his fight. Can't we just have a small break or something to give him time? What if you've changed? Momo stopped her speech at that. She looked to Eraserhead, who was just staring at her. What? You're one of the last people I would have expected to come running to a teacher to change the rules. You seem to me like more of a policy follower. Not as hardcore as Iida, but still a rule follower. I especially didn't expect you to come and do this for the problem child. Last I checked you two weren't all that close. Momo raised a brow at that. You pay attention to our relationships? Izawa turned around and started walking down the stairs. I'm your homeroom teacher. It's my job to watch over how close you are to your classmates and how you cooperate and interact with them. One day you will all be joining agencies and hero teams, and being close to people will factor into that heavily. Come on, let's walk and talk. You can tell me about this sudden change. Yaoyorozu jogged down the stairs to him, matching his pace. Well, you see Mr. Izawa, Midoriya helped me today. After my fight with Tokoyami, I hit a bit of a low point. Whatever confidence I had in myself started to crumble at my feet. I completely botched my fight. My snap decision-making and strategic skills failed me. I almost shut down, but then Midoriya found me. He shared about himself and made me feel better. He single-handedly repaired my confidence. At least as best as he could. Yaoyorozu looked down at her walking feet, not wanting to know what Izawa thought about her breaking down after one loss. But Midoriya really helped me. He inspired me to better myself, and he promised to better himself as well, and that we would do it together. He already bettered himself in that fight. Not just for himself, but for me as well. So I'm going to better myself for him too. My decision-making. It doesn't matter if it is the rules or a decision made by someone with authority. It's the right thing to do, as his friend and a future hero. I need to have confidence in my actions, my strategies, and my viewpoints. I can't cloud my brain with second-guessing anymore. I believe Midoriya should be allowed to continue on. Momo looked to Izawa. She hadn't even realized they had stopped walking and were next to the door for her class's seats. Eraserhead stared blankly at her. A few seconds went by before he responded. That kid, it's always something with him, isn't it? Well then you'll be glad to know I never had any intention of Midoriya being left out. Wait, you didn't? Momo exclaimed with a dropped jaw. No. I don't care what Recovery Girl or anyone else says. As his homeroom teacher, I have the final word as to what happens to him. Izawa leaned into the class stands. Kaminari. Come over here. Mina looked over to Kaminari. Oh, you're in trouble. Oh crap, Kaminari said nervously and walked over to Mr. Izawa. He saw Momo and immediately thought the worst. I swear the cheerleader outfits were Mineta's idea. Not me. Honest, Mr. Izawa glared down at Kaminari. That's not what this is about, but remind me to speak to you and Mineta privately after school once classes resume, accomplice. Just follow me and keep quiet. At that point, Momo was completely lost. They headed down to Recovery Girl's office. Jiru and Uraraka tried to ask what was going on, but Izawa just shushed them and started to watch cat videos on his phone. 45 minutes passed after that. Shiozaki and Iida's battle concluded with Iida sealing the victory. Tokoyami defeated Mina in battle. and Bakugo vs Kirishima seemed to be coming to an end. Recovery Girl came out of her office, and everyone waited impatiently for an update. The surgery is complete. His hand should be fine with the exception of some scarring on his fingers and being a bit rough in spots. She looked and saw Eraserhead stand up and walk toward her. "Oh, hello there, Izawa. Checking up on your student? He's out cold. With the surgery and the fight he's completely worn out. It could take a while before he comes to. That's fixable. Kaminari, follow me." They all walked into the office and saw Izuku on the bed. The top of his head wrapped up, covering his cut from the ice. His ankle had a splint on it, and his right arm was fully cast up. His left hand had a small splint for his finger. Everyone, especially Yaoyorozu and Uraraka, hated seeing him like that. But they could only imagine how much worse he would have turned out if he didn't manage to stop breaking his bones all the time. Izawa gave him a once-over and looked back at everyone. "All right, everyone stand back a bit. Kaminari, put your hand on Midoriya." Recovery Girl tried to speak out, "Hold on, Izawa. What do you think you're doing, getting him ready for his fight? Now Kaminari, give him about 10 volts. What? I thought I made it clear that he shouldn't fight. He won't have enough time to recover." Kaminari, still confused, decided to follow along with what his teacher said. He jolted Midoriya with 2 fingers, and the one for all inheritor shot awake. "Ah. What's happening? Where am I? Did I win? I won, right? 'Cause if I didn't I?" His shocked rambling was ceased by Izawa smacking a casted hand over his mouth. "Midoriya, are you fully awake and energized right now?" Nod yes or no. Midoriya nodded up and down. "Good. Recovery Girl, use your quirk on him." She looked at him baffled. "Izawa, this is madness. You can't just do. Shuzenji, just do it. Please. You know you can't make me leave." She huffed and puffed, but relented. She kissed Midoriya on the head and watched him look once again to Midoriya. "All right, how are you feeling?" Midoriya checked himself over, patting down the casted areas and wrappings. "Actually, I feel fine. A bit sore and tired, but nothing is broken." "Good. Now what day is it? Don't ask, just answer." Tuesday, sir." "Good. Now your full name and parents' names?" "Izuku Midoriya. My parents are Inko Midoriya and Hisashi Midoriya. And nausea or queasiness of any kind?" "No, Mr. Izawa. You don't have a concussion anymore and aren't showing any side effects." "Still tired?" Midoriya felt his eyelids droop. "Yes." "Kaminari, 5 volts." Izuku's eyes shot open. "No, wait, ow. That stings, sorry, but you're on a time limit. There's a break in between for the next round. And I managed to move Tokoyami's fight up before yours. So I'd say you have about 15 minutes before you face Iida. Now get those casts off and get something in your stomach. Make sure that tiredness doesn't come back. Move around a bit. Get your brain flowing by talking with your friends. You won't be getting another out. If you lose this match, you lose. But you and Iida are both my students, so it doesn't really matter either way to me." And with that he took his leave, dragging Kaminari with him. Before Midoriya could even begin to process anything that was going on, he felt 2 things. The first was arms wrapping around his shoulders and a large black ponytail covering the right side of his face. The other was a cane repeatedly hitting him in the head. "What have I told you? Your recklessness is going to be the death of both of us." Midoriya tried blocking his head with his arms, but one was pinned down by a wild Yaoyorozu using hug. I'm sorry. At least I learned how to stop breaking my arms. And yet you still broke one." Recovery Girl stopped her assault and sighed. "While I disagree with Izawa's barbaric terms of a speedy recovery, now that you're awake, I know there's no stopping you. You've fully healed, but your hand needed surgery." Midoriya lightly moved Yaoyorozu, doing his best to once again ignore the fact that he was being hugged by an extremely beautiful girl. Doing poorly too, as his face was completely red. But he looked at his right hand, eyes widening in shock. His pointer, middle, and ring finger all had new bumps and were a bit crooked. His pointer finger has a scar that looked almost like a ring, but only going around 3/4 of the digit. He had another scar running from directly under his middle finger on the front of his hand to the back of his hand under his ring finger, running over his knuckles. He looked at them and thought of them as bittersweet in a way. They definitely weren't the most appealing thing to look at, and he got them for not being able to control his power, but he got them from helping a friend. So he didn't regret them. Recovery Girl realized he was muttering to himself and spoke, "You shouldn't regret them. Use them as a reminder for how far you go ahead of today. Besides, they should work just fine, but a few shards couldn't be realigned. So I removed them." Hopefully your days of breaking your arms are over with those new moves of yours. There's a cup and a pitcher of water on the bedside table. I have a call to make. I'll leave you and your girlfriend to it," recovery girl finished teasingly, headed for the door. Yaoyorozu immediately shot off of Midoriya blushing, and Midoriya passed out again. "I'm not his girlfriend. We're simply good friends." Recovery girl looked back and chuckled, "Whatever you say, dear." She then left to contact Toshinori to update him on Midoriya. Momo shook the blush off of her face and grabbed the water pitcher off of the table. She lightly dropped some onto Midoriya's face. He fluttered his eyelids open and sat back up. "Sorry about that. I think she does that stuff as payback for visiting her too much." Yaoyorozu sat down on the side of the bed and gave a small smile. She poured and handed Midoriya a glass of water. Setting the pitcher back down as she responded, "It's okay, I really don't mind. But how are you feeling? Are you fully awake?" Midoriya laughed, "After all of that, I'm definitely wide awake." He looked up to her and gave a nervous smile. "So, how did I do?" Yaoyorozu broke out into a big smile. "You were incredible. You actually did it. Not that I had any doubt you would keep your promises or anything, but you kept them both." Midoriya looked down at his lap, looking dejected. "No, it's okay. I thought they were impossible too, even when I made them. But I haven't won yet, I still have 2 fights. And that's if I win the next one. Iida will be tough, and he's a better fighter than me. Besides, I still hurt myself. I've already failed my first promise. I'm sorry, but I..." "Stop that." Midoriya looked back up as Yaoyorozu placed a hand on his shoulder. "First of all, you just fought against arguably the most powerful student in our class and won. So don't you dare think you can't fight. You did hurt yourself, but nowhere near the amount you would have if you didn't find a way to stop breaking your bones. Which I should remind you that you did. You didn't fail. Not in the slightest. And while I may disagree with your decision to make Todoroki use his flames," she said, pinching down hard on his arm. "Ow. Can't everyone just be happy I'm okay for once and not hurt me? No. But anyway, by the end of the day you're going to be standing on the first place pedestal. You're amazing. Now stop using your energy to unnecessarily sulk and use it to think of how to beat Iida." Midoriya was really starting to hate his inherited tear ducts because he really didn't want to cry in front of her. But a few tears fell from his eyes. "Yaoyorozu, yes, we're really bad at this whole self-esteem thing, aren't we?" "Most definitely." The two just smiled at each other, not even realizing they had forgotten about 2 other people in the room. Uraraka and Jiro realized that they had been forgotten and were intruding on a moment between their individual best friends. With that, they decided to leave. Yaoyorozu and Midoriya both missed the look of confused agitation and annoyance Uraraka was sending Yaoyorozu's way. And they also missed that same look Jiro was giving Midoriya. Midoriya got his casts taken off, but just in case Momo gave him a tight wrap around of medical tape for his right arm. He drank some water and splashed some on his face. He was wide awake now and ready to fight Iida. He had about 5 minutes until he had to head out. He learned that Tokoyami lost his fight, which meant if he beat Iida he would have to fight Ka-chan. Oh boy. He had fought Ka-chan before. And more times, if one could count getting your ass kicked because you had no quirk and couldn't fight back as fighting. I just hope I can get a spur of the moment attack like in the battle training. But I can't focus on him now, Iida is the priority. He felt a hand on his shoulder. He turned to see Yaoyorozu. "We should head to the waiting area. It's almost time." He nodded his head and they left recovery girl's office. As they headed to the waiting room, Yaoyorozu checked up on Midoriya one last time. "Are you sure you're okay? Nothing out of place?" "I'm fine, I'm sure. Thank you though. I'm still not used to having people fret over me so much. Besides my mom, that is." Yaoyorozu raised a brow at that. Has no one ever been worried for him? With a quirk like that, someone had to have been constantly keeping an eye on him. Then again, Uraraka has told stories from her past and stories that Iida had told her. But she's never mentioned anything about Midoriya's past. In fact, the only thing anyone knows about Midoriya's past is that he went to the same school as Deku. Speak of the devil. Yaoyorozu and Midoriya looked to their right to see Bakugo on the stairs, heading to the class seats, fresh from his fight with Tokoyami. Momo would question why Midoriya flinched at Bakugo at a later date. "The hell are you and this extra doing here?" Momo decided to ignore that. Midoriya started to lock up and sweat unwillingly. "Oh. I'm up next. I'm just heading to my waiting area. Yaoyorozu was just escorting me. Of course you can't even walk from place to place by yourself, nerd. Whatever. Don't think that just because you beat Icehod you can beat me." Your stupid plans won't work like during battle training. Your plan you gave round face didn't work, so don't expect any others to either. Midoriya actually got a serious look from that. I didn't make that plan. Bakugo looked over his shoulder. What, that was all her Ka-chan? She managed it all on her own. Momo also perked up at that. He's right. Just because you pay us no mind doesn't mean we're not capable of anything. Bakugo walked away after that, leaving the quirk inheritor and the creation quirk user alone. Yaoyorozu looked to Izuku. Come on, we should hurry. Do you remember your plan? Yaoyorozu wanted to ask why Midoriya took all that from Bakugo, but chalked it up to his self-esteem issues coming into play. She would have to save it for later. They entered the waiting room and Midoriya answered. I've got it. I think it should work. And now for the last match of the semi-finals. We have the Quicksilver of studiousness and respect Tenya Iida up against a mean green bean who's been making us clench our butts in anticipation with every match, Izuku Midoriya. Would those fighters come to the ring? Midoriya breathed in deeply and exhaled. Just 2 more fights. 2 more and I've done it. I can do this. I can do this. I can't do this. I can't do this. Yaoyorozu grabbed his arm and gave a gentle squeeze. Good luck, she said with a warm smile. Maybe I can. He walked out to the ring and bowed to Iida. Both giving each other a look, signifying that they might be friends, but both would not hold back in their efforts to win. Lady Midnight picked up her megaphone and struck a pose. Combatants are ready, begin. 2 minutes ago. When Iida heard Midoriya's name come out of the intercom system, he was surprised by it to say the least. Not only did he think that Midoriya was not supposed to fight, but even if by some miracle he made it out of surgery in time, Uraraka never told him. He had asked her to inform him of Midoriya's status if anything happened. Why didn't she call? Did she not even know? Well, it doesn't matter. I'm glad he's okay, but is he really any shape to fight? As Iida walked out onto the ring, he saw Midoriya across the platform with medical tape covering his right arm. If Uraraka hasn't had the chance to inform me, and he is still covering his arm, he must have just gotten out of surgery. He must be dead tired. He can't fight like this. But I swore to myself I would win for my brother. Besides, Midoriya wouldn't want me to hold back or forfeit for his sake. I'm sorry Midoriya, but I want to win too. I know you will understand. I'll finish this quickly, so you can go get proper rest. Combatants are ready. Begin. Recipro burst. In the blink of an eye, Iida was across the ring directly in front of Midoriya, his right leg swung back. I'm sorry Midoriya, but I have to win. What Iida never noticed was that before the match started, Midoriya had put his hands in finger-flicking position aimed directly at the ground. Iida swung down, ready to knock Midoriya out quickly and claim his victory. But all he hit was air. What? Sorry Iida. Iida looked up and behind him to see Midoriya up in the air. Midoriya had once again used his flicks to his advantage. His plan was already a success. 15 minutes ago. Back in Recovery Girl's office, Midoriya had just gotten his casts off, and Momo was applying medical tape to his arm. Must think of ways to distract from closeness to girl, Momo spoke up for him. So do you have any ideas for your fight against Iida? I've only seen one of Iida's fights, but from what I have seen, and due to his quirk I can only assume he always tries to end his fights fast. He will most likely launch at me from the start. He's seen me flick my fingers before, so he will feel like his mobility won't help him very much. His recipro burst is too fast even for my new abilities. My reaction time won't be fast enough, especially if I can't decide on which part of my body to send my power to, and mutter. Momo sweat dropped as she watched him piece together everything like a computer. His hand was rubbing his chin, his brow furrowing and unfurrowing as he found problems and solutions. She had to admit, it was impressive how fast he could think and speak like that. And a little cute. Midoriya? She said, snapping her fingers in front of his face. He became startled and looked back to her. A blush crept onto his face. Sorry. I can't help it sometimes. It's okay, but I think caught most of that. So Iida seems like an opponent that is one chance either way. Either he hits you out at the start and he wins, or he misses, or you manage to stay in the ring and you win, Yaoyorozu said, also trying to put something together. Yeah. At least, those are the most likely outcomes. I think my best chance would be to catch him off guard. Let him get close and then dodge. Even if I manage that, his recipro burst lasts 10 seconds. He could easily recover. Momo looked back to Midoriya, then you'll have to ground him or knock him off balance. He can't recover if he can't stay on his feet. Or if you can stay out of his reach. Iida's quirk isn't suitable against flying opponents. Are you sure that super strength of yours doesn't come with flying like pre-quirk era superheroes from comics? Momo asked jokingly. Midoriya laughed too. I wish, but as far as I know wait, that's it? Air. He saw Yaoyorozu look at him confused and decided to elaborate. In my fight with Ka-chan during battle training, he used his explosions to maneuver and launch himself into the air. I did the same with my fingers in my fight with Todoroki. If I put 5% into my fingers and launch myself up just as Iida closes in on me, he'll be caught completely off guard. Flicking my fingers takes almost no major movement anyway, so it can be done quick and under the radar. Yaoyorozu's eyes lit up in understanding. That's perfect. And I think with that, I now have an idea on how we can get him off balance. You know, we seem to make a good team, Midoriya. We should partner up more in class, Momo said, a friendly smile on her face. Midoriya blushed for the millionth time today and nodded. Oh. Yeah, of course. I actually have some ideas our quirks to work together. We can. He was halted by a finger on his lips. He looked at Yaoyorozu who had a nervous smile. Let's just focus on your battle for now. We'll talk about that later, she said, stopping him before he went on for an hour about their quirks. Right, sorry. By the way, you read old comics too? Yaoyorozu had a light blush from that. Oh well, I love to read, and in this world of heroes I was bound to come across them at some point. I haven't read many, but they're interesting. Midoriya just looked at her in awe. Why has the universe only just now introduced me to her? Momo smiled. Anyway, here's what you should do. Back to the fight. As Midoriya looked down to the ground at Iida, he noticed his surprised expression was starting to fade and his engines still revving. He could hear Yaoyorozu's plan in his head. As soon as you're in the air, you won't have much time to act before Iida recovers and acts again. Midoriya raised his hands to the sky, so you need to make sure he can't recover and knock him off balance. Delaware smash, this is where your strength comes in. Immediately shoot yourself back to the ground, right next to Iida. As Midoriya rocketed to the ground, he raised both hands together, clasping them tightly. He began shooting 5% through both arms. Dot and slam. Florida smash. Both of Midoriya's hands smashed into the pavement, cracking the surrounding area and sending off a radius of force. Iida stumbled backwards, only a yard or two away from the edge. That's when you go for the finishing blow. Midoriya leaped to Iida, pulling back his arm and shooting forward. Smash, Iida blocked the blow with his arms, but the force still knocked him off his feet, making his engines useless. He felt himself go backwards. Iida felt his feet hit the ground again. He had about 5 seconds of his burst left, so he put his foot forward, ready to launch again. Iida is out of bounds. Midoriya is the winner. The class president looked down in shock. His feet were out of bounds. I lost. Iida saw another set of feet in front of his own. He looked up to see Midoriya standing in front of him, hand outstretched. Good match, Iida. Tenya couldn't help but feel disappointed. I'm sorry brother, I failed. But I cannot be a sore loser. Midoriya won fair and square, and as his friend and his class president, I should be happy for him. I shouldn't ignore such good sportsmanship. He took Midoriya's hand and shook. You too. Well done my friend. Well look at that. Talk about sportsmanship. Let's give these two a round of applause. Midoriya and Iida walked back inside to the cheers of the audience. As they made it inside, Iida turned to Midoriya. I must admit Midoriya, that was quite an ingenious plan. The medical tape to make me think you were still recovering was a perfect ruse. I fell right for it and tried to attack instantly, the class 1 president said, while chopping his hands. Oh, that wasn't a part of the. He was stopped by a nudge to his back. He turned to see Yaoyorozu. She smiled and whispered to him, just take the compliment. Yeah, thanks Iida. Ah. Greetings Yaoyorozu. I take it, you saw the fight. Yes I did. You were both incredible. Iida gave an almost somber smile. No, I'd say I failed this fight. I didn't even last 1 minute. Midoriya was the truly incredible one. Iida felt around in his pocket and brought out his phone. Forgive me, Beauty really must take this. It's very important. I'll see you both later. Midoriya, good luck against Bakugo. With that, he walked off to receive a phone call that would cause them to not see or hear from Iida for the next few days. Yaoyorozu looked to Midoriya about to say something until she saw his expression. His eyes were wide, and he was sweating terribly. Midoriya? What's wrong? He looked down and spoke. Ka-chan, I have to fight Ka-chan next. Alright folks, it's all come down to this. The final round of the tournament. The explosive bomb blonde Katsuki Kugo vs the entertaining MVP of the tournament, Izuku Midoriya. Will start in 5 minutes. Yaoyorozu realized the problem. She had no idea what their personal issues were with each other, but a Bakugo fighting Midoriya is a very dangerous and angry Bakugo. They didn't even have enough time to form a real plan against such a skilled opponent. She could also tell that Midoriya's timid nature and lack of confidence made him extra jumpy. He tended to flinch whenever Bakugo made some kind of movement or gesture towards him. She wanted to know more, but Yaoyorozu felt she wasn't close enough to Midoriya just yet. Besides, he clearly was not in the mindset to bring up bad memories. You're going to be just fine. Midoriya turned and looked to Yaoyorozu. Realizing he was about to get another pick-me-up speech from her today. Apparently she was really good at those. If Bakugo wants to be rash and angry, let him. He's probably already eager to beat you. Not just for first place, but for reasons only known to you. He seems to hate you. He probably hates the fact that you even made it this far. He will become rash and predictable. She put a finger on his chest, show him that you are just as good, if not better than he is. Maybe he'll even start to treat you and everyone else nicer when you win, and teach him some humility. It wasn't much, but it was the best she could do on their limited time. Midoriya looked at her somewhat surprised. I didn't expect you to have such a dislike for Ka-chan. She smiled and said, he doesn't like you, so that's good enough reason for me. Midoriya blushed at that and said, also, you're really good at inspirational speeches. She laughed, well, someone gave me a really good example to learn from today. They both smiled at each other. Neither saying anything more, but just relishing in their newfound friendship that was growing fast. They both simultaneously thought about how much different that day or even the future could have turned out to be if they didn't talk to one another. Both were happy with that outcome instead of the alternative. Alright. Would the final fighters come to the arena? Yaoyorozu placed her hands on Midoriya's shoulders, wishing him all her luck. I could really get used to this, each simultaneously thought. Midoriya then left and walked out to the ring. He could see Ka-chan giving him the death glare. Clearly furious that Deku made it to the finals. Both bowed to one another from across the ring. Ka-chan? Bakugo lifted his head and looked at Deku. Both staring at each other. Do you remember the day when I said I wasn't trying to compete against you? Bakugo's glare intensified. Lady Midnight spoke out into her megaphone. Combatants are ready. Midoriya furrowed his brow, giving a look right back to Ka-chan. I take it back. Begin. That is all for today's video. Thank you for watching. And please comment down below what you guys want to see next. I'll see you in the next video.